Hitchhiker just landed on Apple Arcade, and today I thought I'd give my initial thoughts on this puzzle adventure. First things first, I'm recovering from a minor chest infection, so I'm sounding a little more nasally than usual with this cold. Anyway, Hitchhiker was one of the first games to be announced for Apple Arcade, way back in March 2019. After that, it just went completely quiet. I honestly thought it was cancelled before this. This is until last week, when its release date was confirmed. It's really no surprise it took so long to come out. This is a very dialogue-heavy game and story-driven experience that definitely needed a great deal of time to perfect. It's not a terribly long game. I started playing it at 6 AM and finished it at 10 AM today, but this isn't a shortcoming at all. I'm happy to report it's definitely a solid experience, but there are a few things to note before you jump into it. If you've played Apple Arcade games from the likes of South of the Circle, Necro Barista, NeoCab, you'll find a similar format here. I would not call it a visual novel, as it has more interactive elements, from puzzle solving to advance the story, narrative choices, which slightly alter the conversations, and occasional minigames. Most of the gameplay is based around sitting in cars or at a cafeteria, and you can look around at the visor or in your car, and so forth, for clues or to just enjoy the views. Fans of visual novels or adventure games should love this one, and for those who are not so into these types of experiences may find themselves drawn to the game's messages. Hitchhiker is a hard game to explain though. It shares key messages about relationships, mistakes we make in life, sadness, death, the positives and negatives of modern technology, and I think most importantly, the connection with those around you. Its story is very confusing and intertwined. Maybe each of you will interpret the story differently to what I have. The game is set across 5 rides or 5 levels, and you play as a young man who has no memory of his past, future, where he is, who he is. Basically, he has no idea of anything. The only thing he is set out to do is hitch rides with peculiar drivers. A mysterious, stoic farmer, a hoarder who clings to his past, an off-duty waitress with all the so-called answers, and each one has a story to tell. A story about themselves, but also about you. Each one of these people you are somewhat connected to, and the game slowly shows you why. After engaging in multiple conversations and solving puzzles, you'll come to discover you're on a mission to find your girlfriend who has gone missing. I really enjoyed listening to what each character had to say. Without giving too much away, I was most taken back by the gentleman in the 4th ride who shared how he escaped from war and how it impacted his family. The voice acting here is also on point for the most part. I found the main character and his girlfriend delivered the weakest performance, which was a shame as they are kind of the focal point of the whole story. There just wasn't that chemistry between the actors. You could tell they were acting, which you don't want, whereas with the other talents they were more convincing. That's just my 2 cents anyway. On your journey, you'll travel through a long highway, the suburbs, a cafeteria, and more. It's hard to say for certain if these are all set in the main character's dreams, if he is stuck trying to reach heaven, or if the game is trying to provide a metaphor. The strangest things happen along the way too, and the game's time period changes often. Sometimes it feels like it's set decades ago, then sometimes it feels like it's set today, and sometimes it feels like it's set in the future. Whatever it's trying to say, it might be up to personal interpretation, as I've said. It will be interesting to see if the developer adds some story DLC in the future, which expands the story. Or maybe you could play as one of the other characters to learn more about their background. I also liked how in each episode, an almost sketchbook style was used for a few minutes to present a character's past story. Look, I wouldn't call this the most high-end game out there, and there are times when the game does look a little bland, but in terms of Apple Arcade titles, it's definitely up there in the graphics department. With fully 3D animated models, backgrounds, and great shadow and lighting techniques, I find it impressive that this is so enjoyable, and especially on mobile devices. Sometimes there were random glitches with the art or graphics, like characters morphing into themselves, heads not connecting correctly with their body, or textures disappearing and reappearing. However, that said, maybe this was an artistic approach, as the game is very weird to begin with. The game's overall performance was really good on our devices too. As with many Mac versions of Apple Arcade games, you can change the resolution and graphics preset. You can also enable an in-game FPS counter. In fact, this is the second game on Apple Arcade to have an in-game FPS counter, the other being Sociable Soccer. I really hope more games bring this feature, as otherwise there is no way to track a game's frame rate without asking the developer directly. Anyway, on our 2025K iMac, the game hits 56 FPS at 1080p and at any preset, which is a little weird. And on our Mac Mini, pretty much the same at very high settings. On mobile devices, I don't know what the frame rate is, but the overall performance was fine with no hiccups. The mobile version definitely has worse shadow quality, but this appears to be the only sacrifice to ensure performance was great. Across the board, none of our devices got hot either, which is fantastic. This is referring to our devices anyway. It may be different for you. You know what the funniest thing for me is though? I've produced this whole video while going on a road trip with family. As I've written this script, I've been looking out the window to come up with notes. And right now I'm sitting in the passenger's seat recording this commentary, and it's really hot and I'm sweating like crazy. Did I get a little car sick too? Gosh dang yes. But the experience has been something that I'll always remember. So, are you going to download Hitchhiker on Apple Arcade? If you have already, what do you think of it? Do you enjoy how the story is a kind of big mystery? Let me know your thoughts on Hitchhiker in the comments. Anyway, if you enjoyed this video, please drop a like and subscribe and turn on notifications to stay up to date with everything Apple Arcade related. My name's Stewie, and thanks for watching.